Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for April 20, 2022, the Digital Transformation Edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal, not the Risk and Compliance Journal, but the CFO Journal. And I found this really interesting and something that every compliance professional needs to be cognizant of as the CFO at Unum Finance stressed the importance of advocating for digital transformation. So if a CFO thinks this is important, I think that it really drives home the message that you as a compliance professional also need to stress the need for digital transformation in your compliance program. Let's get rid of spreadsheets and move to digital. Next up, from the Council of Europe, a first-time contributor to the Daily Compliance News, they have launched a portal on economic crime and cooperation, specifically around corruption prevention. They have a wide variety of programs, approaches, and resources available for the compliance professional. So check out this new website, and you can get some good information around anti-corruption programs. Next up, from Reuters, Gary Gensler said he expects a fair number of large companies to disclose Scope 3 data in climate rules. This is really interesting because Scope 3 is emissions generated by a company's upstream and downstream activities. This starts with large accelerated filers, which are going to be required to do this, but he believes that many companies will. If this is true, it certainly will be a boon to overall ESG efforts because many of a company's emissions really come from both upstream and downstream. And of course, that means from supply chain and those they sell to. So if you'll think about that for a moment, it really points to getting a much more comprehensive picture of ESG emissions, particularly around Scope 3, if we can get those. And our final story also comes to us from Reuters. Indonesia has opened a corruption case linked to the issuance of palm oil export permits, naming suspects including a trade ministry official and palm oil company executives. The move comes as the government, which is the world's top palm oil producer, has faced pressure to control soaring cooking prices. And I'd like you to think about that for a moment, that corruption has led to an increase in cooking prices because of, number one, the bribes paid, and then the decrease in quality because of the corrupt nature of the business operations. So corruption really hurts, even in the kitchen. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.